Every day we negotiate even when we do not realize it. We negotiate at work, at home, with friends, and within ourselves. Most people think negotiation means arguing, pushing, or giving in. This belief creates stress, broken relationships, and poor results. Getting to yes offers a different way to negotiate. It teaches a method that is calm, fair, and effective. The goal is not to defeat the other person. The goal is to reach an agreement that satisfies real needs. This approach helps people solve problems without damaging trust. It works across cultures, languages, and situations. The book shows that good negotiation is a skill anyone can learn. Before learning how to negotiate better, we must first unlearn a common mistake. That mistake is fighting over fixed positions. This is where the journey begins. Chapter 1. Don't bargain over positions. Most conflicts begin when people take a position. A position is a fixed answer that someone chooses early. People often say, "This is what I want," and nothing else. Once a position is chosen, the mind becomes rigid. Listening becomes difficult, and understanding becomes shallow. The discussion turns into a battle of wills. Each side tries to defend their stand instead of solving the problem. This creates tension, frustration, and delay. When people bargain over positions, they tie their identity to the outcome. If the position is attacked, they feel personally attacked. This causes emotional reactions and ego-driven responses. The goal slowly shifts from solving the issue to winning the argument. Even if an agreement is reached, it often feels forced. Such agreements are weak and rarely last. Positional bargaining also limits creativity. When only one answer is defended, all other possibilities disappear. Better solutions remain hidden and unexplored. The result is often compromise that satisfies no one fully. Each side gives up something important and feels unhappy. This kind of agreement damages trust over time. The book explains that positions hide the real story. Behind every position there is a reason. This reason is called an interest. Interests are needs, fears, hopes, and concerns. Positions are only surface expressions of these deeper forces. When people argue over positions, they ignore interests. This is why many negotiations fail, even between reasonable people. The authors share a simple insight. If you focus on interests instead of positions, conflict becomes easier to resolve. But before learning how to focus on interests, you must stop positional thinking. This chapter helps you recognize when you are trapped in positions. It also shows why this approach is harmful. One common example is negotiation over price. One side demands a high price. The other side demands a low price. They argue back and forth for hours. Each side moves slightly, but remains unhappy. They believe this struggle is negotiation. In reality, it is only resistance. If both sides asked why the price matters, the discussion would change. One side may need security. The other side may need affordability. These needs can be addressed in many ways, but positions prevent this exploration. Another problem with positions is escalation. The more publicly a position is stated, the harder it is to change. Changing feels like weakness. People become prisoners of their own words. This locks both sides into an unnecessary fight. Positional bargaining also wastes time and energy. Meetings become longer and more stressful. Communication becomes repetitive and defensive. The relationship suffers even if the deal succeeds. Future cooperation becomes difficult. The authors explain that good negotiation has a different goal. The goal is a wise agreement. A wise agreement meets legitimate interests of both sides. It resolves the problem fairly. It is efficient and improves the relationship. Positional bargaining fails on all these points. To move beyond positions, you must change how you think. You must stop asking who will give in. You must start asking what problem are we solving. This shift is powerful, but not easy. It requires discipline and awareness. The chapter does not ask you to abandon your needs. It asks you to express them differently. Instead of defending a fixed answer, you explore underlying reasons. This keeps discussion flexible and constructive. The authors also warn that positional bargaining invites dirty tactics. Threats, deception, and pressure become common tools. Each side tries to gain advantage rather than understanding. Trust disappears and suspicion grows. By recognizing the limits of positional bargaining, you gain freedom. You are no longer trapped in win or lose thinking. You open the door to cooperation. This prepares the mind for a better method. The end of this chapter leaves an important question. If we should not fight over positions, then what should we do instead? The answer begins with understanding human behavior. Before solving the problem, we must understand the people involved. This leads directly to the next chapter. The next chapter explains how to separate the people from the problem. Chapter 2. Separate the people from the problem. Every negotiation involves people before it involves problems. People bring emotions, experiences, fears, expectations, and pride. These human elements strongly influence how conflicts unfold. Many negotiations fail not because the problem is difficult. They fail because emotions and egos become mixed with the issue. When this happens, the real problem becomes harder to see. This chapter teaches a crucial principle. Treat the people and the problem as two different things. Be respectful and understanding toward people. Be firm and clear about solving the problem. This balance allows cooperation without surrender. Human beings are not machines. They interpret words through feelings and past experiences. A simple statement can feel like an attack. Silence can feel like rejection. Disagreement can feel like disrespect. When people feel threatened, they stop listening. They defend themselves instead of exploring solutions. The authors explain that 3 human factors appear in every negotiation. These are perception, emotion, and communication. If these are ignored, even simple issues become conflicts. Perception is how people see the situation. Different people see the same facts in different ways. Each person believes their view is correct. Problems arise when we assume the other side is wrong or dishonest. Often the difference lies in interpretation, not intention. Understanding the other side view does not mean agreeing with it. It means recognizing how they see the world. A powerful tool is to put yourself in their place. Try to see the problem through their eyes. Ask why they think the way they do. Listen without planning your reply. When people feel understood, they become less defensive. Emotion is the second human factor. Strong feelings often drive negotiation behavior. Anger, fear, frustration, and pride shape decisions. Ignoring emotions does not make them disappear. They only grow stronger beneath the surface. The book teaches that emotions must be acknowledged. You do not argue with emotions. You recognize them calmly. Saying you seem upset, or I may be wrong, but it sounds like you are concerned, can reduce tension. This shows respect and builds trust. It is also important to manage your own emotions. Awareness of your reactions gives you control. Instead of reacting instantly, you can respond thoughtfully. This keeps the discussion productive. Communication is the third human factor. Many conflicts are caused by poor communication. People speak but do not listen. They prepare replies instead of understanding. Messages are misunderstood or taken personally. Effective communication requires active listening. This means giving full attention without interruption. It means summarizing what the other side says. It means asking questions for clarity. When communication improves, misunderstandings decrease. The authors warn against blaming language. Blame attacks the person, not the problem. It creates resistance and defensiveness. Instead, use neutral language that focuses on the issue. Say the delivery was late rather than you failed. Another key idea is to avoid treating the other side as the problem. When people become the enemy, cooperation ends. The real enemy is the shared problem. When both sides fight the problem together, trust grows. The chapter also explains the danger of face-saving. People want to feel respected and competent. If a solution makes someone feel embarrassed, they may reject it. Good agreements allow everyone to maintain dignity. Separating people from the problem does not mean being weak. It means being wise. You can be empathetic without giving up your interests. You can be understanding without surrendering fairness. This approach creates a safe environment for honest discussion. When people feel safe, they share real concerns. This opens the door to meaningful solutions. The authors emphasize that relationships matter. A deal that damages a relationship may cost more in the future. Strong relationships make future negotiations easier. This principle is especially important in families, workplaces, and long-term partnerships. When people and problems are separated, the discussion becomes clearer. Emotions no longer block logic. Communication becomes more open. Trust begins to form. By the end of this chapter, the reader understands an important truth. Before solving any problem, you must handle the human side carefully. Only then can real issues be addressed honestly. Once people feel respected and heard, they are willing to explore deeper reasons. They become ready to explain why they want what they want. This naturally leads to the next step in principled negotiation. The next chapter focuses on uncovering interests instead of defending positions. Chapter 3. Focus on interests, not positions. After learning to separate people from the problem, the next step becomes clear. We must understand what truly drives each side. Positions are what people say they want. Interests are the reasons behind those demands. When negotiation stays at the level of positions, it becomes rigid. When it moves to interests, it becomes flexible and creative. Many conflicts appear impossible only because interests are hidden. People often protect their interests by stating firm demands. They believe revealing reasons will weaken their power. In reality, hiding interests limits solutions. When interests are shared, openly new paths appear. The authors explain that every position grows from many interests. Some interests are practical, such as money, time, or safety. Others are emotional, such as respect, recognition, or belonging. Some are deeply personal and never spoken aloud. Ignoring these forces leads to fragile agreements. A classic mistake in negotiation is to assume opposite positions mean opposite interests. This assumption creates unnecessary conflict. Two people may want different outcomes for similar reasons. They may also want the same outcome for different reasons. Only by asking and listening can this be discovered. The book teaches that asking why is a powerful habit. Why do you want this outcome? Why does this matter to you? These questions reveal motivations rather than demands. They turn debate into dialogue. Listening is equally important. Many negotiators ask questions but do not truly listen. They search for weaknesses instead of understanding. True listening seeks clarity, not advantage. It builds trust and encourages honesty. The authors stress that interests should be stated clearly and calmly. You do not hide them. You do not exaggerate them. You explain them as real human needs. This invites cooperation instead of resistance. It is also important to recognize your own interests. Many people enter negotiation without clarity about what they truly need. They focus only on surface goals. This makes them vulnerable to poor agreements. Knowing your interests gives you direction and confidence. The chapter highlights the value of shared interests. Even opposing sides often share common goals. They may both want stability, efficiency, or long-term success. Shared interests create a foundation for agreement. They remind both sides that cooperation is possible. Differences in interests are also valuable. They allow trade and exchange. One side may care more about timing, the other may care more about cost. These differences can create mutual gain. The authors explain that focusing on interests does not mean being soft. It means being precise. You are clear about what matters and flexible about how to achieve it. This balance strengthens your position rather than weakens it. Another key idea is to make interests come alive. Abstract statements feel distant. Concrete explanations create understanding. Sharing real concerns makes your interests human and relatable. The chapter also warns against inventing the other side interests. Assumptions lead to misunderstanding. Only direct communication reveals the truth. Ask rather than guess. Clarify rather than accuse. The authors provide guidance on handling conflicting interests. You acknowledge the conflict openly. You do not deny it. You explore it together. This honesty builds credibility. When interests clash, the goal is not to erase differences. The goal is to manage them wisely. This often requires creativity and patience. Rigid thinking blocks progress. The chapter emphasizes that negotiation is not a debate. It is a joint problem-solving process. Both sides sit on the same side of the table facing the problem. Interests guide this shared effort. When negotiation shifts from positions to interests, communication improves. Emotions calm down. People feel heard and respected. The atmosphere becomes cooperative rather than hostile. This approach also protects relationships. Agreements based on interests feel fair. They are easier to maintain over time. They reduce resentment and regret. The authors make it clear that focusing on interests requires courage. It requires openness and trust. But the reward is stronger and more durable agreements. By the end of this chapter, the reader understands a crucial transformation. Negotiation is no longer about demands. It is about understanding and problem solving. Once interests are clearly identified, a new challenge appears. How do we turn these interests into concrete solutions? How do we create outcomes that satisfy both sides? The answer lies in creativity and choice. This leads naturally to the next chapter. The next chapter explains how to invent options for mutual gain. Chapter 4. Invent options for mutual gain. Once interests are clear, a new challenge appears. How do we move from understanding to agreement? Many negotiations fail at this stage because people rush to decide. They look for one answer too quickly. They judge ideas before exploring them. This habit blocks creativity and reduces value. The authors explain that inventing options is a separate task from deciding. When these two tasks are mixed, people become defensive. They protect their ideas instead of improving them. Creativity requires freedom from judgment. Decision requires careful evaluation. Keeping these stages separate allows better outcomes. A common barrier is the belief that negotiation is a win-lose game. This belief creates a fixed pie mindset. People assume there is only one limited outcome. If one side gains, the other must lose. This assumption is rarely true. It simply feels true because imagination is restricted. Another barrier is the fear of appearing weak or unrealistic. People hesitate to suggest ideas that seem unusual. They worry the other side will reject or mock them. As a result, only safe and obvious options are discussed. The best ideas never appear. The chapter encourages brainstorming as a powerful tool. Brainstorming means generating many ideas without criticism. During this stage, quantity matters more than quality. All ideas are welcome, even strange ones. The goal is to expand the range of possibilities. To brainstorm effectively, the authors suggest clear rules. Separate inventing from judging. Encourage wild ideas. Build on ideas rather than attacking them. Focus on shared interests. Brainstorming works best when people feel safe. Safety comes from respect and openness. This connects directly to separating people from the problem. When people trust the process, creativity increases. Another technique is to change perspective. Look at the problem from different angles. Ask how an outsider might solve it. Ask how the problem would look in the future. Ask how the problem affects others not present. Each perspective reveals new options. The authors also suggest making the problem bigger before making it smaller. Instead of asking which solution to choose, ask what solutions might exist. Instead of narrowing early, expand first. Later, you can refine and select. Inventing options for mutual gain means looking for differences that create value. Differences in priorities. Time preferences, risk tolerance, and resources can be used creatively. One side may value speed. Another may value certainty. One may care about recognition. Another may care about cost. These differences allow trade-offs that benefit both. For example, one side might accept delayed payment for a higher total value. Another might accept publicity instead of money. These outcomes are impossible when positions dominate. The chapter explains the power of package deals. Instead of negotiating one issue at a time, group issues together. This allows balanced exchanges. Losses in one area can be offset by gains in another. Packages reduce pressure and increase flexibility. Another key idea is to search for shared interests actively. Shared interests provide natural options. They reduce resistance and build momentum. When both sides gain agreement, becomes easier. The authors warn against the temptation to settle too early. Early agreement often reflects limited thinking. Better options may exist, but remain undiscovered. Patience at this stage pays off later. They also address the role of fairness. Options should respect legitimate interests on both sides. An option that humiliates or exploits will fail. Durable agreements feel fair even if they involve compromise. Inventing options does not mean avoiding conflict. It means channeling conflict into creativity. Differences become sources of value rather than barriers. The chapter highlights a subtle but important shift. Negotiators become designers rather than fighters. They design agreements instead of defending territory. This mindset changes the emotional tone of negotiation. Another practical tool is to write ideas down visibly. Seeing options reduces personal attachment. Ideas become shared objects rather than personal property. This lowers ego involvement. The authors emphasize that not every option must be accepted. The goal is exploration, not commitment. Later, the best options will be tested against fair standards. By the end of this chapter, the reader understands a critical truth. Good agreements are invented, not discovered. They are created through imagination, collaboration, and patience. Creativity transforms negotiation from struggle into problem solving. Once many options are available, a new question arises. How do we choose fairly among them? How do we avoid power struggles and pressure? The answer lies in standards that both sides respect. This prepares the way for the next chapter. The next chapter explains why insisting on objective criteria protects fairness and trust. Chapter 5. Insist on using objective criteria. After inventing many options for mutual gain, a new challenge appears. Even with good ideas on the table, disagreement may still remain. Each side may prefer different options. If this stage turns into pressure or power struggle, the negotiation can collapse. This chapter explains how to avoid that danger. The answer is to insist on using objective criteria. Objective criteria are fair standards that exist outside personal will. They are not based on who is stronger, louder, or more stubborn. They are based on principles, facts, and accepted measures. When decisions rely on objective criteria, negotiation becomes reasonable and calm. The authors explain that many conflicts become personal because there is no agreed standard. Without standards, people argue endlessly. Each side insists their solution is right simply because they want it. This returns the negotiation to positional bargaining. Objective criteria shift the discussion from opinions to fairness. Instead of asking who will give in the question, becomes what is fair. This change transforms the tone of negotiation. Examples of objective criteria include market value, expert opinion, professional standards, legal rules, historical precedent, or scientific measurement. These standards are independent of either side wishes. They provide a neutral reference point. Using objective criteria protects relationships. When outcomes are based on fairness, people feel respected. They may not get everything they want, but they feel treated justly. This reduces resentment and builds trust. The chapter emphasizes a powerful principle. Never yield to pressure, only to principle. Pressure creates winners and losers. Principle creates legitimacy. The authors suggest 3 key steps for using objective criteria effectively. First, frame each issue as a joint search for fair standards. Second, reason, and be open to reason. Third, never give in to pressure. Framing the issue as a joint search means involving the other side. You do not impose standards. You invite discussion about what standards are appropriate. This keeps the process cooperative. For example, instead of saying, "This is my price," you might say, "What do you think is a fair price based on the market?" This invites logic instead of resistance. Reasoning means explaining why a standard is fair. It also means listening to the other side reasoning. Good negotiation is a two-way exchange of logic, not demands. Being open to reason means you are willing to change your view if the argument is better. This openness increases credibility. It shows confidence rather than weakness. Never giving in to pressure is essential. Pressure may come as threats, emotional appeals, or urgency. If you give in, you encourage future pressure. If you stay calm and return to objective standards, pressure loses power. The authors explain that power struggles often arise when no standards exist. The stronger side tries to dominate. The weaker side resists or submits. Both outcomes damage relationships. Objective criteria balance power. They give both sides a shared foundation. Even weaker negotiators gain strength through fairness. The chapter also explains that there may be more than one fair standard. Different standards may point to different outcomes. This is normal. The goal is not to find one perfect rule. The goal is to reason together toward a reasonable result. When standards conflict, negotiation continues through discussion, not force. You may combine standards or adjust outcomes. The process remains respectful and rational. The authors warn against false standards. Some people use biased or invented criteria to appear fair. You must examine standards critically. Ask where they come from and who accepts them. Another important idea is legitimacy. People accept outcomes more readily when they believe the process is legitimate. Objective criteria create legitimacy. They explain not only what the decision is, but why it is fair. This chapter also addresses cultural differences. Different cultures value different standards. Some value tradition, others value efficiency. Good negotiators recognize this and adapt. They seek standards that both sides respect. Using objective criteria also improves efficiency. Decisions are reached faster. Arguments become shorter. Emotions stay lower. The authors stress that fairness is not the same as compromise. Compromise often means splitting the difference without reason. Objective criteria provide reasons. They justify outcomes logically. The chapter includes an important reminder. You do not need to agree on everything at once. Each issue can be addressed separately. Each issue can have its own standards. This flexibility prevents deadlock. It allows progress even when some issues remain unresolved. By the end of this chapter, the reader understands a crucial truth. Fairness is a powerful form of strength. It protects against manipulation. It builds lasting agreements. However, even fairness does not solve every problem. Sometimes the other side has more power resources or alternatives. This raises a new concern. What if they are more powerful? This question leads directly to the next chapter. Chapter 6. What if they are more powerful? Many people fear negotiation because they believe the other side has more power. Power may come from money position, authority experience, or control over resources. When one side appears stronger, the weaker side often feels trapped. Fear leads to poor decisions and unnecessary concessions. This chapter explains that power in negotiation is often misunderstood. Real power does not come only from strength or status. Real power comes from preparation, clarity, and choice. The first idea introduced in this chapter is your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. This means what you will do if no agreement is reached. It is not a threat or a demand. It is a clear, realistic option available to you. When you know your alternative, you gain confidence. You are no longer negotiating from desperation. You are negotiating from choice. Many people walk into negotiations without knowing their alternatives. They believe agreement is the only option. This makes them vulnerable to pressure. The other side may sense this fear. They may demand more and offer less. Knowing your alternative protects you from this trap. Your alternative does not have to be perfect. It only needs to be real. Even a modest alternative gives you strength. It allows you to say no without anger. It allows you to walk away without regret. The authors explain that the side with the better alternative has more power. This is true even if they appear weaker on the surface. A person with fewer resources but strong alternatives may negotiate better. A powerful organization with no alternatives may be desperate. Improving your alternative is one of the smartest things you can do. Before negotiating, you should ask, what will I do if this fails? Then ask, how can I improve that option? You may gather more information. You may explore other partners. You may delay the decision. Each improvement increases your confidence. This chapter also explains that power is not fixed. It changes with time, information, and perception. Many people give power to the other side without realizing it. They assume the other side knows more or has all the options. Often this assumption is false. Preparation reduces fear. When you research facts, options, and standards, you reduce uncertainty. Knowledge is a powerful equalizer. It allows you to challenge unfair demands calmly. It allows you to ask better questions. The authors also explain that power based on pressure is unstable. Threats, ultimatums, and intimidation create resistance. They may produce short-term results, but they damage trust and relationships. They also invite retaliation. When facing a more powerful negotiator, you should avoid emotional reactions. Fear, anger, and submission weaken your position. Calm curiosity strengthens it. Ask questions instead of arguing. Seek reasons behind demands. Redirect discussion to interests and objective criteria. Another important idea in this chapter is legitimacy. Legitimacy comes from fairness standards and facts. When you base your arguments on objective criteria, you gain strength. Even powerful negotiators must justify their demands. This shifts the conversation from power to principle. The chapter emphasizes that negotiation is not about matching force with force. It is about using reason and preparation. You do not need equal power to negotiate well. You need clarity and discipline. The authors warn against exaggerating the other side's strength. People often imagine the worst. They assume rejection, disaster, or punishment. This fear exists mostly in the mind. Testing assumptions reduces fear. You may discover the other side needs agreement as much as you do. Another source of power is patience. The side that can wait often gains advantage. Rushing leads to poor choices. Silence and time can weaken pressure tactics. The chapter also explains how to respond to take-it-or-leave-it offers. Such offers are meant to create urgency and fear. Instead of reacting emotionally, you can ask questions. You can ask why the offer is framed this way. You can ask what interests are behind it. You can also pause and consult your alternatives. If the offer is worse than your alternative, you should reject it calmly. If it is better, you may accept it confidently. The decision becomes clear and rational. The authors emphasize self-respect. Accepting a bad deal damages confidence and future negotiation ability. Walking away from a bad deal strengthens your position over time. Others learn that you value fairness and clarity. This chapter teaches that negotiation power begins inside. It begins with knowing your needs, limits, and options. External power matters less than inner stability. As the chapter closes, a new challenge appears. What if the other side refuses to negotiate at all? What if they reject discussion and cooperation? Knowing your power is important, but using it wisely requires skill. The next chapter explores what to do when the other side will not play. Chapter 7. What if they won't play? Sometimes negotiation fails not because of disagreement, but because the other side refuses to negotiate at all. They may dismiss your concerns, ignore your proposals, or demand obedience. They may say there is nothing to discuss. This situation feels frustrating and powerless. Many people respond by arguing, pleading, or giving up. This chapter explains a smarter and calmer approach. The authors begin with an important truth. You cannot force anyone to negotiate. Pressure, threats, or anger usually make resistance stronger. When people feel pushed, they protect their position even more. So the question changes. Instead of, how do I force them to play? The question becomes, how do I change the game? Refusing to play often hides fear or insecurity. The other side may fear losing control. They may fear appearing weak. They may fear change or uncertainty. Understanding this helps you respond wisely instead of emotionally. The book introduces the idea of negotiation jujitsu. This means using the other side resistance as leverage. Instead of pushing back, you step aside and redirect. When they attack your position, you do not defend it. You ask questions. You invite explanation. You turn resistance into discussion. For example, if they say this is non-negotiable, you do not argue immediately. You calmly ask why it is important. You ask what problem they are trying to solve. This shifts the focus from authority to reasoning. One powerful tool is silence. Silence creates space. It invites the other side to speak. People often reveal interests when filling silence. Silence also shows confidence. It signals that you are not desperate. Another tool is reframing. If they attack you personally, you do not defend yourself. You reframe the attack as concern about the problem. For example, if they say you are unreasonable, you respond by saying you want a solution that works for both sides. This keeps discussion constructive. The chapter emphasizes asking open questions. Questions invite cooperation without demanding it. They allow the other side to feel in control. At the same time, you guide the conversation. Good questions uncover interests, assumptions, and fears. When the other side refuses to listen, you can ask them to advise you. People enjoy giving advice. This shifts their role from opponent to helper. For example, you can ask, "How would you handle this if you were in my place?" This often lowers resistance. The authors also suggest bringing in objective criteria. If they reject discussion, you can ask what standard they are using. This moves conversation away from power. It invites fairness and legitimacy. Another method is to build a golden bridge. A golden bridge helps the other side move forward without losing face. People resist negotiation when they fear embarrassment or loss of status. By acknowledging their concerns and contributions, you make agreement safer. You can also propose a trial agreement. A temporary solution feels less risky. It allows both sides to test cooperation without full commitment. Success builds trust and openness. The chapter warns against reacting emotionally. Anger, insults, and sarcasm close doors. Calm persistence opens them. Even when the other side refuses to play, you remain steady. Sometimes refusal hides misunderstanding. They may not understand your interests. Clear, simple communication reduces this barrier. Repeating your concerns calmly can make a difference. The authors remind readers of alternatives. If the other side truly refuses cooperation, you must rely on your best alternative. Knowing you can walk away gives you freedom. It prevents desperation. However, walking away is not failure. It is a choice based on self-respect. Often the willingness to walk away invites renewed discussion. The chapter also explains the power of gradual engagement. You may start with small, low-risk topics. Success in small areas builds momentum. Trust grows slowly but steadily. The key lesson is patience. Refusal today does not mean refusal forever. People change when conditions change. Your calm consistency may shift those conditions. This chapter teaches emotional discipline. It teaches strength without aggression. It teaches influence without force. As the chapter closes, a new challenge appears. What if the other side does play but plays unfairly? What if they use deception, pressure, or manipulation? Handling refusal requires patience. Handling dirty tactics requires clarity and courage. The next chapter explores how to respond when fairness is violated. Chapter 8. What if they use dirty tricks? Not all negotiators act fairly. Some people use deception, pressure, or manipulation to gain advantage. They may lie about facts, hide information, or create false urgency. They may use threats, personal attacks, or misleading promises. When this happens, many people feel shocked or angry. Some react emotionally. Others give in just to end the discomfort. This chapter teaches how to face dirty tricks calmly and effectively. The first lesson is awareness. You cannot defend yourself against tactics you do not recognize. Dirty tricks often work because they are subtle. They are designed to confuse, intimidate, or distract. Once you see them clearly, their power decreases. The authors explain that dirty tricks are not signs of strength. They are signs of weakness. People use manipulation when they lack strong arguments or fair standards. Understanding this shifts your mindset. Instead of feeling threatened, you feel alert and steady. One common dirty trick is deception. This includes false statements, misleading numbers, or hidden conditions. The book advises against accusing the other side of lying directly. Direct accusations create defensiveness and conflict. Instead, you should question the information calmly. Ask how they reach their numbers. Ask for sources or standards. This brings facts into the open without confrontation. Another tactic is pressure. Pressure may appear as artificial deadlines. You may hear phrases like this offer expires today. The goal is to rush your decision. The authors advise slowing down instead of speeding up. Ask why the deadline exists. Check your alternatives. Time pressure loses power when you stay calm. Threats are another common tactic. Threats may be direct or indirect. They aim to create fear. The book explains that threats should be treated as information, not commands. Ask what problem the threat is meant to solve. Redirect discussion to interests and objective criteria. If the threat is worse than your alternative, you must be ready to walk away. Personal attacks are also used to weaken confidence. They may insult your intelligence experience or intentions. Reacting emotionally gives the attacker control. Instead, separate the person from the problem. Acknowledge emotions without accepting blame. Bring the conversation back to the issue. The authors stress the importance of naming the tactic. Naming does not mean accusing. It means describing what is happening neutrally. For example, you may say, "I feel pressure from this deadline, and I want to understand it." This exposes the tactic without hostility. Once named, it often loses effectiveness. Another dirty trick is good cop, bad cop behavior. One person appears friendly, while the other is aggressive. This is meant to confuse and divide. Recognizing the pattern helps you stay focused. Treat both people consistently and return to principles. The chapter also discusses extreme demands. Some negotiators start with unreasonable requests. They hope you will compromise toward their goal. Instead of reacting emotionally, ask for justification. Ask what standard supports this demand. Extreme positions often collapse under objective scrutiny. False concessions are another tactic. The other side pretends to give up something of little value. They expect real concessions in return. To handle this, evaluate concessions carefully. Ask what they cost the other side. Do not reward fake flexibility. The authors emphasize the importance of ground rules. Early in negotiation, you can agree on fair process. You can agree on honesty, confidentiality, and standards. If rules are violated, you can pause and address the issue. This protects both sides. Another powerful defense is preparation. The more prepared you are, the less vulnerable you become. Preparation includes knowing facts, standards, interests, and alternatives. Confidence grows from clarity. The chapter also highlights emotional control. Dirty tricks aim to trigger fear, anger, or confusion. Maintaining inner calm is essential. Pausing, breathing, and reflecting help regain balance. The authors explain that you always have choices. You can continue negotiating. You can pause the discussion. You can bring in a mediator. You can walk away. Knowing these options reduces pressure. Walking away is not defeat. It is a rational response to unfairness. It protects your self-respect and long-term interests. Often, the willingness to walk away restores fairness. The chapter also teaches the value of integrity. Responding to manipulation with honesty builds reputation. Over time, people learn that tricks do not work on you. This creates long-term strength. The authors warn against becoming manipulative yourself. Using dirty tricks damages trust and character. Short-term gains lead to long-term losses. Principled negotiation is not weakness. It is disciplined strength. As this chapter closes, the message becomes clear. Negotiation is not about winning at any cost. It is about reaching wise agreements while protecting dignity. Handling dirty tricks requires awareness, courage, and calm. When you recognize tactics, name them, and return to principles, you stay in control. With this understanding, the journey of the book comes full circle. You have learned how to avoid positional bargaining. You have learned how to separate people from problems. You have learned how to focus on interests, create options. use objective criteria, and protect yourself. Together, these ideas form a complete method. A method that allows agreement without giving in.